Ladies and gentlemen, ATDF everything in that shelf presentation. You're now rocking with TDF everything. Spoiled Rotten.
Spoiler alert.
Welcome back, everybody.
Hey.
It's me, Daniel,
And this is Ben
on Spoiled Rotten.
on that shelf.
Boom. Now, if you're listening to this when it comes out, this is the second episode of the week. Because of Spider-Man, we're just going to put this out in the same week as our episode 4 review.
That's how much we care about you.
And how much we care about this show, Hawkeye. This is episode 5, Ronin. Yeah, let's get into it. So it starts with Yelena, and she's off. I'm assuming somewhere in the States. I don't know. I thought it didn't look like the States, but then everyone was American. So she's off.
Yeah.
And it looks like she's going to free a widow. Also, spoilers if you haven't watched Black Widow, but they've got a thing where if you spray it, you can undo the mind control on a Black Widow.
It's like a powderized crystal or something like that.
Yeah.
It's an antidote, they call it. Yeah.
So Natasha doesn't need that because she was just indoctrinated versus Yelena and that generation where they were legitimately like mind controlled into doing what they were doing. So that's what's going on in that scene. And they find out, no, that woman is kind of like Natasha. She didn't need to be undone, or maybe she just didn't need to be undone. She was just operating the way we see Yelena in present day operating.
Maybe because I remember Natasha having to dramatically break her nose in order to get free of that. Maybe she figured out the same thing.
Else. That was
right. The
hormones was to protect him. That's for anybody. Yeah.
That's like, I won't hurt you. That's my ultimate safe. Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Never mind. Yeah. I'm confused. Two things.
Yeah. But so it's not important why she didn't need it. The important thing is she didn't need it. And so then it's kind of this, for me, funny moment of like, oh, okay, why did you come then? And they're thinking like, you must be enslaved with like some like fat, rich, like terrible person. And she's like, no, like I make the money. I bring in the money by doing hits. And I have to say this did surprise me. I did not see this coming, even though they clearly stated it was 2018. When Yelena goes to the bathroom to wash her hands, she blips, and I was like, "Oh shit!" Like, did not see that coming.
My thing is the moment I saw 2018 now, because 2018 is so ingrained in my mind. I'm like, how many times are we going to relive this blip? Don't get me wrong, it's relevant to the storytelling here. It's very, very relevant, and I think it's going to be relevant for a while. But we just relive the blip again, and I'm like, this is one of the cooler ways to do it, because I like the idea of them blipping and then rematerializing really, really fast, as opposed to and then having that quick effect of like, oh, the scenes, the time has changed, the 5 years have gone by, and all that kind of. That was really cool, that effect.
So yeah, she comes back. Her friend is now married because adopted, and gives her the details. Like, you get in, they hire you, you can kill. Like, it's a good gig if you can get it, which she can't because she's got the skills. And I think that's all that's important. Other than that's clearly how she gets connected with Val and
correct
this plot line.
Yeah, and we're led to believe that. I will say at this point, for the audience, it's at this point they decide to cut to the previously on Hawkeye section, which
I was gonna skip over that for time.
I just didn't appreciate that. I was I don't like it. This is stupid. I
didn't like it, but
that's all I needed to say about that.
It was jarring and I didn't like it. Anyway, so Kate comes home to Eleanor after the fight on the roof, and basically what I liked about her performance is it's her basically saying everything her mom wants to hear. So her mom is hearing, he protected me, he told me to go away, he told me to never come around again, and you could see that it's killing her. But obviously that's like, she's not even saying it in a petulant way. Like, I can't believe this. It was just like she's genuinely hurt by this, and she's just like, no,
Yeah.
this is what happened. And I like Haley Steinfeld's performance in this.
It's wonderful here.
In this
It's
scene.
wonderful. Yeah.
I've liked her the whole time, but I especially liked this scene.
I
and what it
entirely
means for her.
agree. I entirely agree. She is very much Kate Bishop to me. Having known Kate Bishop from the video games and
Yeah.
the little bit of comics, she's got that character down packed, I think.
And so yeah, she's doing her job, and then it kind of
Mhm.
jumps to the bedroom where Eleanor is fixing her wounds, and she's like,
Mhm.
"Does Clint think you're a superhero?" Again, more of what the mom obviously wants to hear, but you can just feel how crushing it is for Kate to be like, "No, he doesn't, and I don't think I'm one either." And
Mhm.
the rest of the scene kind of seems like it's Kate reckoning with her limitations,
Mhm.
which would have been a good thing for the whole show to explore, like
Yeah.
the limitations. But anyway, it's strong in this episode, so I like it. I really liked all of this stuff.
Mhm.
The only thing I noticed that was interesting about it, and maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I noticed Eleanor puts the band-aid on the wrong way. Like, obviously she wouldn't know what Hawkeye knows, but Hawkeye told Kate how to actually put on a band-aid over a cut so that it heals properly. And
Correct.
so I was kind of looking at how she's talking to Kate about, like, yeah, it's fine, people just take different paths, and like how that is a metaphorical band-aid for the issue Kate has.
Mm.
She's also putting on a very real band-aid in the
Mhm.
wrong way, which will be as effective as what Eleanor is saying. So I thought
Yep.
they did a nice pairing there visually and through dialogue of,
Yeah. I
while
really
it's
like that you picked
yeah.
up on that. I really, really did. I didn't see that visual cue. I read more into the dialogue of the scene or just what the scene was giving off, and the idea of like, this is Kate constantly being told her whole life, you're not old enough, you're not good enough, you're not this, you're not this, you're not
Mhm.
this. And then being in her childhood bedroom, being nursed back to health by her mother, quite
Mhm.
literally on her bed, and just being like, this is the full acceptance of all those messages. And it the sense of defeat is very heavy in how she's playing everything, and I think it's wonderful delivery. Obviously, we know as an audience that it can't possibly be the end of Kate Bishop, but she still sells it very, very well, I feel, in this
Right.
scene from
She's
an
knocked
acting
down.
standpoint.
She's been
Yes.
knocked down.
Yeah.
That for the moment, obviously it doesn't even last for the whole episode, but in
Of
that
course.
moment,
Mhm.
she feels like, yeah, this is it.
Yeah.
So I like that. And then Kate tells Eleanor basically, like, look, we looked into Jack. He's the CEO of this Sloan Limited place. So you got to look into
Mhm.
that. Just promise me you'll look into that. I
Mhm.
feel like in that moment, that is Kate just kind of being like, well, yeah, this is done. All I can tell you is what we found out so far. And
I agree.
please just look into this.
Yeah, I agree.
And
I'd be like, that is her actually giving up. It's like, yeah, we have nothing to withhold from you anymore, or no
Yeah.
reason to withhold any of this information. So here it is. We got it. You please. I like that she says, just please promise me you'll
Mhm.
look into it, as opposed to please promise me you won't marry him or something like that. You know what I mean?
Or
I
yeah,
think
or like
it's
just let me finish this piece or anything, like anything. It was just
Mhm.
like, look, here's the information. Please just look into it.
Yeah.
And I think the actress name is Vera Farmiga, not Farmaja, whatever.
Mhm.
But Eleanor's performance in this I thought was also good, because I genuinely couldn't tell what she was thinking under the surface. Like I believe she cares about Kate, but I don't know like
Mhm.
what calculations she's making or anything. I thought she played it really well, where it seemed like just straight up, yeah, she's taking care of her daughter.
I agree. In that sense, she didn't have any facial visible reaction. She was playing the whole scene from that motherly standpoint, but gathering everything from a very espionage standpoint, right? It's all the identities of like, oh, you're at your weakest right now. You're divulging everything. Let me get more out of you. Let me
Mhm.
guide this conversation towards getting the stuff that I want to get, or for someone else, or for myself, or whatever it might
Right.
be. But this gets played up very, very well. I do love this scene quite a bit. It's just from the visual cues of her first arrows to her awards to her just being like, I got all those, but I'm not good enough to be an Avenger.
Yeah.
It works on a lot of different levels.
So then the next scene is Kazi talking to Maya and basically being like, hey, you don't have to pretend this doesn't hurt, and
Mhm.
just trying to get her to open up.
Mhm.
Um, and I think ultimately what they land on is like, look, because she was like, oh, there was someone else there, and he's like, yeah, this is getting a bit too much. Like I would imagine it's him thinking about what Clint said in the last episode of like,
Yep.
yeah, like we're bringing a lot of attention now, so I will help you kill Ronin, but we need to be done after this because this is clearly not the way we should be
Mhm.
operating.
Yep. His
Uh,
hard boundary, that discussion to me was really, really well done. It was awesome. I
yeah.
loved it. Because it's very interesting because it's like a brotherly sisterly relationship that they have, right? Like the mirror image of like he's nursing her to health too, the same way Kate's being nursed back to health by someone that they deeply trust, and since they were their whole lives basically.
Mhm.
And in this situation, the irony is that both those female characters fully trust. Well, I mean, both those characters, like Maya and Kate, both fully trust the mom and Kazi, but neither, like, they're both being manipulated behind the scenes, which
I
is
don't think
one
that
out of
it's.
love
I don't
and
think
one out of
Maya
whatever.
fully trusts Kazi in that scene. I think that's the point
Mm.
of the scene is that he is feeling like she's got her guard up and that he's on the outs of what is happening,
Mm.
versus Kate, who's able to just lay it all on the line for Eleanor and tell her everything.
Gotcha.
We know for a fact Kate is telling not even a version of the truth. She's just telling the truth. She's saying
Mm.
exactly what's happening.
Yep.
Whereas Maya is definitely guarded. That's specifically why he's saying, hey, stop acting like this doesn't hurt. And then her just kind of letting him lead the whole like, well, okay,
Mhm.
so I'll help you. And then that's that. But she doesn't really give up information other than there was someone else there.
No, and I can't remember if this is the conversation with Kazi where she's trying to be like, "Hey, that night," and get
No, that's
information.
later.
That's later. Okay, yeah. So we'll get there.
So this is what I'm about to explain is my favorite scene, probably of the series, but it's Yelena being in Kate's apartment and their little
Yes.
macaroni showdown. I feel like this is what I've been missing from this season as a consistent thing. Because as I said earlier on, I like the back and forth with Jack and Kate. I loved Echo's like first bit. But basically that the idea that there is an antagonist in the room, but they don't have to like be twirling a mustache. Like I mean, I guess Elena is kind of twirling a mustache, but it's more of like a back and forth, and like you're
Mhm.
actually seeing them deal with the bad guy instead of talking about the bad guy or talking about. Yeah, I just really appreciated that they got into it
Mhm.
throughout this scene. I like, yeah, Florence Pugh as Yelena is great. Everything I
Mhm.
liked about her from the Black Widow movie is present in this
Mhm.
scene. Like just the way she laughs off stuff Kate Bishop says, or the way she keeps saying Kate Bishop. And I like that even when Kate was like, "Are you just saying that to prove it?" And she's like, "Yes," and it doesn't phase her at all. She's like, "Yes, that is what happened.
That's
That's what's
entirely
happening."
why.
Yeah. Um, but
Oh,
yeah, I
yeah.
think what we talked about last episode about Yelena needing to know from Clint what happened. I mean, this is her roundabout way of doing it because like she is asking
Mhm.
Kate, like, look, why are you risking your life for this guy? And I think she has made up her mind that he's a bad guy, but obviously she's looking for information. Like she's not willing
Mhm.
to just trust that idea that he's bad.
Yeah, I think with everything that Yelena's been through, and I agree, this scene was by far my favorite scene so far of the entire series because it's just such a jarring scene in so many different levels because you're watching Yelena disarm Kate every single way possible, right? It's hilarious. Um, to the degree where like, I'm gonna catch the thing that you throw at me. I'm gonna be like,
And the
yeah,
way she
you're
says hi after, like,
yeah. Hi,
I
all
think
this
they're
kind of
going
stuff.
back and forth. It's not as obvious, but I do, and
Mhm.
that's why I like Florence Pugh's performance. But
Mhm.
obviously, there's things that Kate says in this that actually makes Yelena have to pause and be
Of
like, "All right,
course,
let me reassess."
of course, like the evaluation of Clint, and this is to me why I feel like the show is about accountability, right? If we're thinking of this show as like this is like, oh, the trial of Clint or something like that, the debate, or like how Marvel does these really, really good things. Like they did it really well in Civil War, where they're like, okay, we're going to debate this stance and everyone's going to have a standpoint and all this kind of stuff. They did it here very, very well. It's just about one topic, which is why it feels like we're spending so much time and it moves so slowly, but you want to be there in the moment. And that's the point. Like the whole back and forth in that conversation, you want to be in that moment. You want everything to slow down. I even think at some point there's no music or anything like that. It's just dialogue, right? And it's great. Because you're right. I don't think Florence Pugh or Yelena fully understands or trusts anything after her events as Black Widow, but also the 5-year blip thing.
Mhm.
And then she's working for I'm never going to be Vanessa, Contessa, Val. Let's say Val,
Yeah.
just Val. And obviously, I don't think Yelena fully trusts Val. So it's just like, okay, Yelena now hearing a little bit of information about her sister, and that first reaction after coming back from the bathroom is like, where's Natasha? I have to let her know I'm safe and all that kind of stuff. And we're like, oh crap.
Right.
It's
That's where
really,
it cuts. It cuts when obviously she gets the news. Well, Natasha's dead. But that's, you kind of like brought up to a good point of this is kind of where the direction of the conversation goes, where she's kind of like, yeah, why do you protect him? And then she talks about how Clint saved the world, and she's like, no, my sister Natasha did. And I like that resentment of like, well, now the narrative is that this guy did it. And I'm not saying about men versus women. It's just this guy who she believes, we'll get into that later, killed her sister, gets to be the hero when I'm also not sure how she knows this for a fact, but we as the audience know that Natasha's a big part of saving the world. Like that was, as we said last episode, she was the one pushing for everything, like looking for a way to fix things during the blip. After Thanos said he destroyed the jet, like that was her leading the charge. It was her sacrifice she made. So yeah, we as the audience know that Yelena's right, that like, well, I mean, they're both right, but that Yelena, you would feel Yelena's like anger at it being framed as Clint saved the world.
100%, especially when it's being sold to her that this is the person responsible for your sister's death. It's just like you get to be everyone sees you as a hero, but I see but this is my truth, but no one is going to care about my truth the way I'm going to care about it. Right. You know what I mean? You feel that hurt and it's personal. And and Kate being on the side of everyone else being like, but he saved the world, and Yelena kind of being like, well, is it that heroic when you live in the world, like when you're doing it for yourself too at the same time? Like basically bringing up a lot of different arguments against Clint, which I really, really appreciate, because she's right. There's a lot of blood behind. He, like we said in the last episode of this, the last episode, he just decided to be judge, jury, and executioner as Ronin.
Yeah. And I would argue as Hawkeye, but yeah, I think,
as well as Hawkeye, yes.
Yeah, I think one thing I have to say is I was wrong. I haven't gone back to look, but apparently Yelena does know he was Ronin, because that's the picture she was shown. I didn't remember it that way, but apparently that is the case, that Yelena saw. I'm not quite sure I know where they're going with it. I don't know why we as an audience are in the dark about how certain people know certain things. Like I buy that Val is like, oh, he was Ronin because they could have footage, they could do it, but like I don't know how they know what happened on Vormir. Like that doesn't seem like information that anyone could talk about but Clint.
Exactly.
So I don't know that, and I don't know how she knows what Natasha did. I mean, I guess the Avengers could have talked about it, but it just seems like we're in this weird spot as an audience of like, I guess we just have to trust that this was explained, because they've set up Val as she could just know things. Fair enough. But like there's been a bunch of other people throughout these series where they say things about what happened on Vormir, or just during like the fight in Infinity War, where I'm like, would you know that? Like, is that a detail that you know? And I don't want to get too hung up on it, but it is kind of just like, this is where this kind of gets muddy for me, because I want it to be that you see both women's points, but I'm kind of like, but how does Yelena know Like, where is she coming from on knowing this, as
Mhm.
opposed, because they're already setting up the idea that Val sold her a lie. So
Mhm.
like, it's hard for me then to like operate knowing that, like, not knowing if all of her information is from Val, or if she knows some stuff for herself but has this extra layer from Val.
Mhm.
Just hard. That's the only thing I would say, is that it's kind of hard because I don't know where people are getting their information from, and it doesn't matter so much as in scenes like this where we know what Kate's talking about. Yes, she has to admit I've only known him for a week, but we've seen how she feels about him based on when she saw him and now that she's worked with him.
Yeah, and she's got a freaking poster of him in her room.
Yeah, well, she already
Yeah.
idolized him, but what I'm saying
Yeah.
is now she's actually spent a week with him
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
knows
the real Clint and got to bond.
well, she sees the good. She's seen when he's talking to his kid on the phone, or like she's seen that aspect of it too. So he is even more humanized and ingratiated to her. So we get that.
The vulnerable side of Clint for sure. 100%.
Yeah, but we don't. But like, since Yelena was gone for the events of Infinity
Mhm.
War and Endgame, obviously, because she
Mhm.
blipped, it's like, well, then what is she working off of?
So here's my ultimate question: is this? Does Val even know the truth? Does anyone really even know the truth but Hawkeye? And to that degree, it's one of those things where two people go, one person comes back. You can conclude anything you want. You could spin you could spin the
Yeah,
narrative
no, we
any way you
talked about
want.
that.
You could do
Yeah.
that, right? And I think that's all she's really doing. But the question to me is, why would Val do that? Why make it personal? Because here's the biggest thing. If this
Well,
is a
she's making it
retcon,
personal because she got a call to be like, kill Clint, and then she can be like, hey, this is the guy
sure.
that killed your sister.
Okay, but sure. But at that point, why make it personal? It's already business. And the thing is, who put out the
Because
hit?
if you know that you're taking her to do something with someone who hasn't already, like, could be like, hey, I knew your sister, because when he hears her name later, he already knows who she is.
Oh, you mean like
He's
a Martha moment?
I mean, what I'm saying is she's trying to avoid a Martha moment, if that's how you want to. Like,
Yes,
she's
yes.
saying like, no, this is the guy who killed your sister, so it doesn't even matter that I'm paying you.
Right.
You should just be down to do this right now.
By guaranteeing the okay,
Yeah.
I can see where you're coming from there. But the interesting thing to me is this, and maybe we have to talk about this. Yeah, we'll talk about this toward the end of the episode.
Yeah.
We will. Yeah. Because there's a big point I have to share, and I just know that you want to get through the format and
Yeah.
the episode in chronological order. So let's just go do that. Yeah.
Let's go for it.
Mhm.
So basically, yeah, they go in back and forth. What we talked about, is Clint a good person? And she's like, well, he was an Avenger, and she's like, how come being an Avenger excuses these aren't the exact words, but it's kind of, her point was, so what if he was an Avenger? Does that excuse every bad thing he's ever done just because
Right.
he's an Avenger?
Mhm.
Again, a good idea that could have been explored, but didn't really. It lives in this moment, and that's probably why it's my favorite scene. But I wish I wish things in this scene were a bit more focused on throughout the season. But yeah, so she does that, and then Kate, I guess the final thing that Kate says that gets, again, I don't think this is a obvious thing, but I feel like causes Elena to calculate is, well, I think he's a good person. And if the person is telling you he's a bad person, think about that person and what they must be like if they are selling this to you as the good guy is the bad guy. So yeah. And so that's kind of but I do like that Yelena ends it with thanks for the girls' night. Like, truly, and I think she genuinely was kind of like, I mean, this was a pleasant experience for me. So thank you.
Genuinely, she's like, even when she's like, well, it's my first time in New York. Like, it's business trip, but I can still fit in a little bit of fun. Two more things about this scene. I love what Yelena says, because I know it's going to come back in this episode, in the next episode. She says, a person isn't defined by their title. They're defined by what they do. So that is going to come back, obviously, later, because we don't see Yelena actually killing Clint, maybe wounding him critically so that he might not have the ability to carry on as Hawkeye anymore, but not killing him outright. I don't see that. Maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like a really, really big thing. I see them ultimately teaming up after she finds out the truth and trusts him, and you're an Avenger now. But the last thing about this scene to the do thing. Oh God, no, I forgot the second thing.
Okay.
We'll move on. We'll just move on. Yeah.
So then, yeah, this didn't actually happen in this order, but I just grouped all the Yelena Kate stuff together. But Clint goes to Grills, and basically he's all beaten up, so he needs somewhere to go, and he asks Grills to look after the dog, and Grills realizes, wait, you're gonna stay in a hotel for Christmas? I understand the idea, but I'm like, why would it be better for him to sleep on your couch than in a hotel? Like, he's like, no, sleep on my couch. I was like, all right, sure. And then he switches it up to bed. I appreciate that he's being nice. My whole thing with this is like, why is he so like ready to like put himself out for someone who is never, I mean, I guess he played along during the LARPing, so I guess that's that.
I think he just wants to be close by proxy. I mean, it's hero worship.
So a hero by proxy,
right?
That has always been my issue with this, is that they've set him up as a firefighter. That is
a hero in its own right.
That is a hero in his own right. That's as close as you're going to get to a real world superhero, and it feels like such a downgrade to then put him up against.
Yeah, they are real world superheroes. I will 100% say that. You're 100% right. It's a downgrade for him to take this position. It feels so weird from a writing standpoint,
because they're not showing him as a firefighter. They showed him as someone who stole stuff from his house while he was fired. Like, it's just it's such an unflattering portrayal of what we in the real world have as heroes. Like,
yes,
and I find it, I'm having a hard time with it. Is what I was saying. Like, and it doesn't matter that he's not the way he is in the comics, because based on how this episode goes, he may very well meet the same fate as he does in the comics. It's just like the comics work for me when he worked like this, because he was like, they might say what he does for a living, but it is kind of just like his thing is he just hangs out. Like, that's Grills. Whereas this one, they've already said, I was like, no, this is a firefighter. He is cool in his own right. And I know later on they let Kate say that, but it's just like, I don't know, man. Like, they keep all of these first responders, cops, and firefighters are just like so ready to like give up their positioning to like help out this guy who's kind of like at best like, all right, fine, I'll tolerate being around you.
Yeah. It's not a good look on a lot of this. I absolutely agree with you. It's weird to show corruption in this light. It's weird to show all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying Grills is. I'm saying that the evidence tampering is 100% corruption, right? No matter how you cut it. The thing with Grills is, I like the idea of like he just hangs out as a firefighter, because I'm like, yeah, if there's no fires, they just hang out, and if there's and work out and like take care of themselves and all that kind of stuff. But essentially, just hang out. Because if there's a fire, you go for it. But if there's no fire, what are you gonna do? You can't be blamed for anything. It's interesting,
because I think
you're right.
Again, I'm not a firefighter, but what I've seen of firefighters is, yes, there's hanging out, but you're hanging out at the fire station. There's still stuff to be done around the fire station.
Yeah. They're saying he's hanging out at home, which is weird, because I'm like,
and I get that you can have
weird.
time off. Like, I understand that, but it's just we've only seen him on his time off, I guess, which may work in terms of his schedule around Christmas. I'm just saying you kind of lose what he is in this portrayal, and I don't mean from the comics. I mean what they've set up for him.
It's the writing for his character is very inconsistent here. They didn't think too hard about it at all.
Well, that's that. And then, so basically, he says, hey, do you want to see the new costumes? And Clint falls asleep. And not right now. Great. And then the next scene is Kate walking in on Jack being arrested, and he doesn't seem that upset. He's kind of like, no, I would have done this too. Don't worry about it. Like, I'll be home in time for your party. Of everything that people said it's staged, this felt the most staged to me.
Yes, staged.
This was
staged.
The most clearly staged thing for me. because of how unnatural both Tony Dalton and Vera Farmiga performed what was going on in there.
Well, I was just thinking about timing in the sense where it's like, hey, we had to prove this to Kate, so he's just standing there with the two cops.
That is true as well. Yeah,
and just like, hey, it's just like the idea of like, because I at this point in time, I so see the mom character as being like, oh, okay, this is how we're gonna get through our problems. We're gonna lie about it, so we're gonna fake the dad's death, whether or not the dad's actually dead. Now, I actually am starting to suspect the dad's actually dead and didn't like really do anything weird, because of course there was still a funeral. You assume there was a body that they buried, I don't know, within a penthouse, right? So I'm like, okay, maybe the dad's actually dead and we're reading too much into that. But in this situation where it's like, okay, oh crap, my adult daughter knows about my fiance, can't brush that under the rug because she could go to the cops. So let's get some actors from community college and
no, that cop is real. That's the cop that called her. The arresting, like the
that's a real cop. Okay,
well, that's no.
It's like
for me, it's staged in the sense of, as you said, the timing of it. But that person who was taking Jack away is very real. He's from the comics, but he also was earlier in the season. You'll notice in the previously on, it's always him being like, "Hey, are you available to come in right now?"
It's in someone's pocket.
Yeah, he could be in someone's pocket, but he's not an actor. Like, as in,
he's not a rando. Okay,
yeah,
fair enough.
That is,
he's not a hired actor by them. Yeah,
in the comics, I'm assuming they use his name so that you know that he's not in someone's pocket. That's my assumption, only because of his function in the comics. So giving him that name leads me to believe he's on the up and up.
Yep.
Maybe the guy who is with him isn't, but he is.
Yep. One of them is
wrong. I could definitely be wrong, but I just feel like that giving him that name serves that purpose for someone who's read the comics.
Yeah, I just don't see how he can't be crooked at this point, because everything about that is staged.
Well, I mean, what I'm saying is, like, the people doing the arresting might think they're doing the right thing, but we've seen shows where it's like someone higher up is like, well, we're going to cut them loose.
Right. We're going to process paperwork, or oops, we forgot to file the paperwork.
So that's why I'm saying I don't know if he's crooked. It's more
okay. I see what you're saying.
He might be acting on good faith, and then he'll bump up against someone who's like, "Nah, we're not going through with this."
Yeah, he might be going to the bar tonight, being like, "Yeah, I did some justice. I got a bad guy, and this beer's for you." And no, you're part of a crooked criminal organization.
Yes,
boom.
Cops.
It is called the police officers.
Okay, so next is Clint going to the Avengers Memorial to speak to Natasha, which is nice. Like, what I took from it, I know he says a bunch of things, but what I took from it is him saying, "I tried to earn what I see as the second chance that you gave me every day." I know he says a whole, like, "I wish it could have been me," and it was all over a stupid orange rock, but what I liked about it was like hearing him talk about how, like, he hates that his friend died. He's beating himself up about that, but he's also trying to move forward and not make it be in vain. So it's two things. It's like, yes, I'm sad about it, but I also need to make the most. I can't just sit around and mope about it.
Yeah,
I need to make sure that I do right by Natasha by using this second chance effectively.
And then I feel like he just goes ahead and undoes it when he's like, "So forgive me for what I'm about to do." And he just puts on his hood. And I'm like, well, this feels like a manifesto moment.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I just don't really know what the point of that dialogue is, considering what he ends up doing. I'm like, oh,
yes.
I wasn't clear on what he thought his plan was, or whether or not he pulled off his plan. I just know what happens next. So I was just like, I kind of put that part out of my mind, because I was just like, I don't really get what he thinks is happening. And I understand that he talks to his wife. We can just say that scene now. But he calls Laura, and he's kind of like, he basically tells her, like, look, something bad's about to happen. He's saying, like, Kingpin might be on to us, and she's like, well, he's so far, like we're so far away. He's like, no, it's never far enough.
Mhm.
And again, it's another opportunity to show that Laura gets what's going on, because one, she says, well, you obviously weren't calling for my permission and you know you don't need it. And she says, and just remember, like, no one else will ever understand more than I do. Like I
Yep.
understand more than anyone else. So, but again, I'm like, I don't know what he thinks he's doing, because we'll get to what happens, but I'm just like, if that was it, I don't understand what that whole dramatic thing was about.
Yep.
It didn't seem like that big of a like moment. But so anyway, Kate decides it's not over with Clint. She's had enough time to stew, and she just starts leaving voicemails until his mailbox is full. And I like it. As I said in last episode, that's kind of how the Fraction run works. Is like they break up, they come back together. They break up, they come back together. Obviously, for 6 episodes, I can see how they just come back together the one time. So even if it felt fast for some people, it always does in the comics as well. It's always kind of just like, well, whatever, like we just like each other, so we're going to be back together no matter what we said before that made us part ways. But yeah, that's that. And then Clint sends the Tracksuit Mafia message via arrow through the glass saying, hey, get Maya to come meet me. I know it says it's just directly talking to Maya, but the point is get Maya to come meet me. She knows where. Great.
And
excellent.
I just find that dialogue here is hilarious. It's like, we looked at like the Royal Tenenbaums. Yeah.
That was another Yelena moment where he was just like, yes. I don't like, was this a serious question? Like,
yes,
yeah, we do look like the Royal
them.
Tenenbaums. Yeah, I like their back and forth. That was cool. So then we go to the showdown with Maya, where Clint takes out all the people that she set up for protection. I wasn't crazy about how they filmed it. Like, I get it, it's a Batman thing. I always like it, but for some reason the camera placement made it look cheaper than it should have.
I agree. It wasn't really in a position.
And it's the same directors that killed it with the action in episode 3, so I was kind of just like, oh, whatever. I wasn't gonna get hung up on it, but I was kind of like, oh, this doesn't feel as cool as it should.
Right.
We are used, as an audience, we're used to scenes like this.
Right. It's funny because you're right. The espionage part of that, the sneaking around aspect of it, the stealth component, that's the right word, wasn't well done, but like the camera work going into the fight with Maya, fantastic. Like, I really like that fight. It was a fantastic fight, because it's like, okay, you could tell he's toying with her and not trying to actually kill her, but trying to convince her.
Understand. That's why I don't like the fight, because I'm like, what is being accomplished here? I don't. All we knew going into it is that he had to apologize to Laura, and that he apologized to Natasha for what he was about to do. And then, as you said, he's just toying with her, and I'm like, what is happening? Like, why is this happening? Like, usually the fights give us some new information, but this fight just confused me.
So here's what I feel I took away from this fight, in the sense where I believe, and this is me projecting, hear me out, I think that Hawkeye and Laura, previously, when they talked about the Ronin situation after they came back from the blip and, reestablished a relationship, here's what I did for the 5 years that I was gone. Cool. I don't understand any of that, but I'm going to keep it secret, and we're never going to talk about it to anyone else. And we're never going to reveal your identity to protect the kids, because evil people can come back to this. So I think what happened here is, you have to trust me. I'm going to do something that I never thought I'd had to do, which is reveal himself as the Ronin, and potentially not only just to Maya, but to potentially people around too. I know he took people out around, but I feel like that's what he's referencing when he's like,
she can tell people, because obviously he wasn't going to kill her. But this is why it confuses me.
You're absolutely right.
Do that, and I understand that that's a beat from Echo's like storyline. Again, that's not in the Matt Fraction run, but like that Daredevil shows her his face, and it's like, see, like, I would have been a kid, I obviously didn't kill your dad. And the same function happens here, where he's like, I didn't, well, he doesn't say I didn't, but he says, that it's your boss that wanted your dad dead, that's why that happened. well, that's all we can see because he's saying stuff, but we don't, as the audience, and Maya presumably isn't catching everything, but we see what Maya catches, which is your boss wanted your dad dead, and he doubles down. It's like, that's right, your boss. But the big thing for me was that he was just like, if you come after me or anybody comes after me, it'll be the last thing you do. But essentially, I'll kill you if you come after me. But I'm like, okay. I think you're right that the Ronin, it was that he was going to expose himself as Ronin, but I'm just like, why would Natasha also need to get an apology for that? Like, that's because those two things were connected for me, and maybe they're not. That I was just like, I don't get what this is.
I get the sense. You're right. I get the sense that Hawkeye made a promise to Natasha, either on screen or non-verbally, or the character did, that Ronin is going to die on Vormir with you, and I am going to come back. And what he
Ronin
says
had
to
died
the statue,
before they went to Vormir, yeah.
Yes, but to what he says to the statue, I try to live every life renewed in to what you gave me, what you offered me, and all that kind of stuff, your sacrifice for mine. And that he's like, I'm sorry, but for one day I have to wear the Ronin suit again, and I'm never gonna he accepted the fact that he's basically having to be Ronin, but just to the idea of like, I'm going to try to end this, try to tie up this knot, but at the same time protect my family, which I understand. I understand the protect the family.
I won't stay on it. To me, that only makes sense if he actually goes ahead and kills the people, because then he is being Ronin again for the purpose of this. But he doesn't. He basically plays it out like Hawkeye. So I'm just like, I don't really get. I understand what you're saying in theory. I'm saying in practice, it doesn't feel well executed because.
Oh yes, I agree.
I think him toying with her is a Hawkeye thing, and so then it doesn't make sense to me that it's like, gotta put on the Ronin thing, because he's not acting like Ronin while he has it on.
Because Ronin would just straight up kill.
Ronin would have just killed them.
Exactly. That to me was what I thought the logical conclusion was. Is just like, okay, I thought he was going to go to the idea of, I have to kill Maya because she's never going to stop. Kazi had his chance. She's still coming after me. So he now Maya now knows about my family, knows their names, knows this. So I got to clean this up so that my family's safe. I get the sense that's where it was going, but he chose to not kill, because he did say to Kazi, I don't want any more death. And I do sincerely believe he means that when he said that.
Yeah,
right?
I guess what I'm saying is what I've been saying the whole time, is that the Ronin stuff always felt done. And in this scene really proves that it was already done. So it doesn't feel as potent to me as maybe other people, because I'm like, yeah, he's obviously put it behind him, because he didn't slip back into something. He didn't, like, it's over.
But I mean, that must be how ashamed of it he wholeheartedly is, the idea that he even has to wear it again, or even like has to open up that can of worms again. It's just, I think he's just, I agree with you, it's not well done. I just think he's being very extra about it, but I understand why. The weight of what he's carrying around with, Natasha killed me, this is my promise to her, and all this kind of stuff, and I have to break this promise in order to do this. I get it. If he's processing it that way, I get it.
Because we've already,
it's not well done.
Because I think you're obviously right that it's got to be that. I don't see any other logical thing. I don't think it works well. It also kind of contradicts itself, but I think you're right.
I think that's what they're going for. I agree with you. Not well done though.
So yeah, basically Maya does get the drop on Clint at a certain point. She's gonna kill him, but Kate with an arrow knocks the weapon out of her hand. And so does she run away or something? Like, I can't remember what happens from there other than Kate and Clint take an Uber away from the scene.
Yeah, it's like, that's your getaway plan. Yeah.
and again, I was just like, why wouldn't it be? She doesn't have a car.
Yeah, there's nothing.
They've already been seen taking cabs together. Like, it's not like it was like, oh well, this is too public. But yeah, that's how they get away. So then Maya meets with Kazi. I mean, for me, it's a bit late in the game for this idea, but I guess again, if you're going on comic book knowledge, it makes sense that she needs to be weary of someone that she thought was close to her. So now she's decided, as you alluded to earlier, that she's obviously got it in her head that Kazi might have something to do with this because he didn't show up to the meeting where her dad got killed. I don't know if we knew this already, but if we did, it's restated that he was William's number 2, so it really doesn't make sense to her, because especially since he was in town, that he wouldn't have been at that meeting as well. And we did catch fragments of something of an informant going on within the ranks, so maybe she thinks he's the informant. I don't know, but that, to me, with only one episode left and the show not really being about Echo, feels tacked on, or that it could have been done sooner.
I get. When I saw that, I was like, I guess we'll explore that in the season of Echo.
Yeah, we could. Yeah, I mean, we know she has a show.
Yeah, because to me, I'm like, it's a good launching point for a show, and it doesn't distract away from the finale. But you're right, it leaves it very open-ended. But to the point of what the MCU is trying to achieve, I don't think open-ended is going to be something that we are concerned with for too long. They're very good at closing up these ends.
I agree with that. I'm saying, in terms of this, what I've been saying all the time, like, I can enjoy a show. I don't have to be like, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's just when we're talking about like other shows that we've already liked, I can't help but be like, this to me is kind of like a flaw in the writing that I didn't see as prevalent in the other shows that people seem to think aren't as good.
Yeah, I feel like the standards got lowered for this one for sure. I agree with that. But yeah, potentially this is what we explore in the season of Echo.
Yeah.
And whether or not now Echo is tied to the king, to something else.
Kingpin. You can say Kingpin.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. You said it already.
People hope, if they haven't already watched the episode, I don't know.
I'm sure YouTube or Instagram spoiled it, but yeah, Kingpin official. Yay.
Well, I mean, I feel like it was not actor wise, but I think it was official that it was Kingpin when we saw the uncle touching her cheek in episode 3.
There's a lot of plausible deniability and a lot of misdirect in Marvel nowadays, so that could have been a whole lot of nothing. Just like my aerospace friend engineer, which is literally just an aerospace friend engineer. It's just, that's a lot of hoopla. But we were feeding into that more than anything else.
I feel like that's different because you didn't see the character. People just decided what it must mean versus we don't see the character's face, but the character was on screen.
True.
And had a presence. Anyway, yeah. So Yelena tracks down the person who hired her, which confirmed is Eleanor, which I feel like people put together last episode, which good. Glad that they followed through on that thread. And sends a pic to Kate of Eleanor and Kingpin together. Basically, I like that she showed her respect of being like, I feel like you should know. Like, I found out who hired me. It's Eleanor Bishop, and you deserve to know. And she's like, who's that in the picture with my mom? And Jeremy Renner. Clint's like, well, that's who I was worried about. That's Kingpin. And
the big guy. Kingpin with no post-credit scene.
The first time I watched it, I was like, oh, for sure that's Vincent D'Onofrio. And then the second time I was like, I don't know if that, I mean, I think obviously it will be, but the person in that picture did look different enough for me to be like, I mean, they could just go with someone else based on that blurry picture. But I think it's quite clearly going to be Vincent D'Onofrio.
Yeah, I think it's very clear based on the build-up, the reveal, all this kind of stuff, and the signatures that are tied to Vincent D'Onofrio, like the laugh, the chuckle, like a lot of people like say that part. I'm not too familiar with his laugh, but it's confirmed now in the photo. Like, it's blurred enough for me to be like, yeah, okay, that's Vincent D'Onofrio from a far away spy shot. So it works for me.
And the only other thing I put down, I don't know if they did this before, but at the end of the credits or the animated credits, it's the Kingpin silhouette over Kate and Clint, which I found interesting. But yeah, that's episode 5.
It's episode 5.
So you said you had something to say near the end.
Yeah. This is tricky for me because it's like we're led to believe that Val offered the job to Yelena to kill Clint.
Mhm.
But now we understand that it's actually the mother who orders the hit through Kingpin to do the thing. So I don't understand how Val's involved in this. Or are we saying like what's going on here? Like, is Val the agent, or like is Kingpin working with Val? Like that, I guess, is implied that Val's like working with evil people too, or like criminals or whatever. But like the thing to me is like, so what?
I don't know that it's for certain that Kingpin did. My feeling was that Eleanor called Val directly, and that what what Yelena was showing Kate was just like, hey, I tracked it down and here's your mom. And yeah, Kingpin's in the picture, but I got the sense that if Kingpin already knew enough to be like, hey, let's get someone to kill Clint, it, it would kind of undercut all this dread that Clint already has of like, we just can't be seen by, like, I don't want to bring the big guy out. I don't want, like, but if before this season even started, the big guy was already on to him, it feels like, or I guess they're showing it wasn't before the season started, but like, it just feels like, well, I mean, he already knows, he's already on to you. It feels less dramatic. It feels like it's less tension then, because it's like we've already seen the long and short of what Kingpin was willing to do about it. So that's why for me it makes more sense if it was just like Eleanor reaching out to Val. I'm not saying you're wrong. It's just like, oh, like that would be weird if it was she got Kingpin to ask Val to ask Yelena to kill him, only because that's it feels like, well, then why would you ever care about Kingpin if like
exactly
caliber, like why would you ever care if he's just gonna be doing that? So I thought it was more again, they didn't really have time to work on it, but like that was just their way of being like, hey, your mama hired the hit, and also Clint's now gonna confirm that like your mom hangs out with bad guys.
I mean, like, I need to rewatch that dialogue in that scene again because I watched it like at noon. But I vaguely remember like Yelena being like, I now know who the person, like your mom put the hit out, like, and all this kind of stuff. But then I was just like the immediate thing. I'm like,
she said your mom hired me.
Your mom hired me.
Like, she doesn't say that. She says, I now know who hired me, Eleanor Bishop.
And then Val delivers the thing and all this kind of stuff. So you're just like, who actually hires? This is a bit messy to me. And this is one of the lower standards of writing to me from a Marvel standpoint, that I've come to expect from these things. But yeah, that was to me very, very disappointing to be like, okay, someone else has got to question this, right? There's got to be theories about this, about why this exists. Maybe there's a criminal organization that's the like they have this meeting thing, or whatever, and Val's a part of it, and so is Kingpin and all this kind of stuff. And now it muddies up the water of like, okay, well, why did Hawkeye go to New York for a vacation if he's so afraid of Kingpin? Why? It's so weird.
Oh, that makes sense to me because he's not thinking about that until he's already there and Ronin shows up.
That's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair. He did convincingly think that he was, left the Ronin thing behind. But now the Rolex thing, where's that leading?
Look, if I never hear Rolex again, that'll be too soon. I do not care about that storyline. I want everyone to stop talking about it. I don't care. Like this show, it's what I thought about. Like it doesn't feel like it's anything to me. I don't know how it ties into the greater themes of the show. It's just a thing people are talking about, and I don't mean audience. I mean the people in this show keep talking about it, and I'm like, I don't, if you're not gonna like, I can't like. There's too many mystery boxes at that point. Like I don't care to unpack Rolex.
Yeah, I don't entirely believe that we're gonna have a satisfying conclusion to that if we didn't have one at this episode.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you could. I don't know. I just know I don't care.
Yeah, but whatever. It is what it is. Yeah. But going into the finale,
Yeah. So I guess I should say after this episode, hopefully, if everything goes right, we are doing Spider-Man No Way Home on Monday. Like we will have that episode up on Monday.
Yeah, we're excited to review it, and we will be in your ears Monday for that. But this
Excellent.
episode, very, very soon.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're already listening to this episode.
That's how soon it is.
Yeah, that's how soon it's happening. It's happening right now. Well, thank you very much for everybody for listening. We're part of the That Shelf Podcast Network with other great shows like Bad Gay Movies, Black Hole Films, Changing Reels, Composers, just a whole bunch of great shows. So head on over to thatshelf.com. If you want to hear older episodes of our show, go to tdfeverything.com/spoiledrotten. Our email is spoiledpodcast@gmail.com. Our Twitter is @tdfspoiled. We are on all sorts of podcast places. So Apple
We're all
Podcasts,
over the
Google
place.
Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Radio Public. You name it, we're probably there. And if we're not there, as I always say, please hit us up on email or Twitter and let us know where we need to be so we can put ourselves there. And if we're already where you like us, then rate, review, subscribe, and share with your friends. And just get in touch with us anyway, even if it's not podcast related or where you listen to us related. Just what do you think of Hawkeye? What do you think of the Disney Plus shows in general so far? We'd love to hear it. Reach out. I believe that's everything. Goodbye.
That's it. Cheers.
This has been a TDF Everything production, brah.